Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
3 times in 3 days. It's good to see you all here again. We're here today to talk about 2 important actions that the Prince George's County Police Department has taken to better our communities and to better our police department. The first part of this news conference will focus on the remarkable success of our January crime initiative. Some of the evidence of that success is on display here today. And during the second portion of this event, we'll introduce the Prince George's County's Police Department's new Inspector General. We would like to begin this morning by introducing Prince George's County Police Chief Mark McGaugh.
Thank you. Well, good morning. In January 2011, just as the county executive was forming his administration, this county, our county, was struck with a serious crime challenge. By the end of 2011, this department, working very closely with the council, with the county exec's office, with the state's attorney's office, and other agencies within the county government, but most specifically the community itself, we were able to reduce violent crime for 2011 by almost twice the national average. Property crime was down almost 3 times the national average. But at the beginning of 2012, we were committed and determined not to have the same January we had in 2011. And that was really the basis for the January initiative. Major McCann is going to speak about the specifics about that, but I'd like to right now thank him for his leadership during this initiative. I'm pleased to announce with careful planning and calculated adjustments, we were able to put anywhere from 100 to 150 officers each night into our most demanding crime areas. This January, we had 6 homicides. 6 is too many. 1 is too many. But it was a 60% reduction from the homicide rate of 2011. I need to thank the men and women of our department for their dedication and relentless efforts during this initiative. Our community deserves the very best that we have to offer. With that, I want to assure our community that we will continue to work together in partnership to reduce crime. I also want to thank Mr. Baker for providing us with the necessary resources to carry out our mission and for his unwavering support of the Prince George's County Police Department. Thank you, Mr. Baker. And now I'd like to introduce the County Executive, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Chief. If I could, if you would indulge me a few minutes, if I could ask our state's attorney to come up and say a few words, because without her support and without her cooperation, we certainly wouldn't have gotten through the last year. At least I know I wouldn't have. So if we could have Ms. Alston-Brooks, please.
Thank you. Good morning. I really just want to come forward this morning to thank Chief McGaugh for his leadership. I also want to thank all the members of the Prince George's County Police Department for the absolutely outstanding work that they have done over the last year and the years even before that. I think the results speak for themselves, but I really want to thank you on behalf of the over 900,000 men and women who rely on us every day to make sure that they are able to live in communities where they can raise their children and send them to schools that are safe. This year has been a year of great collaboration, not just with the police department, but I also want to thank the county executive. He has been a tremendous leader whose leadership style has been one of collaboration. I see Mary Lou McDonough, the sheriff, all of us have worked together to make sure that this community is recognized as a first-class community as it is. And so I'm so proud of the results today. I want to thank you. As we move forward to build an economy and attract jobs here, this is the kind of work that really speaks for itself, and I think we'll continue to see us moving in the right direction. So thank you to all of you all, and we look forward to continuing to work together.
Thank you. Isn't she terrific? Aren't we lucky in this county? I am pleased to be here. I want to also recognize the fact that we have our Clerk of the Court, Marilyn Bland, with us. Thank you very much for being here. It's a lot different than last year. I want to thank, the police chief. Chief McGaugh has done a terrific job. He came in just like we did in this administration under difficult times, under difficult circumstances that were made more difficult during the first part of January of our new administration. And quite honestly, under his new administration in the police department, Since that time, he's taken the bull by the horns, and he's brought us home. So let's give him a round of applause, please. And as the state's attorney stated, it was our working together. It was in the midst of that crisis that the state's attorney's office, the sheriff's office, we were just so blessed to have Sheriff High bringing in his experience as being a former police chief, working with the men and women I assembled that helped run this government. And Barry Stanton has done a terrific job. If we can give him a round of applause. And Mary Lou. So it all leads us to where we are here today. And that is, one of the things the chief said to me is that we're not going to have a January like we had last year. We're going to be proactive. And he says, I got a young hotshot that we're going to put in charge of this. I'm glad to see that Joe and I both shaved for this event today. But, I have to tell you, I was here the night that they brought in the men and women when this initiative started. With very little notice, they brought these folks in here and they said, you know what? You're the best of the best. We're going to put you out in the streets. We're going to give you a tough task. And, I know if somebody would have called me at the last minute and said, I'm going to spend somewhere around 48 hours, 72 hours out here chasing down people around the holidays, I wouldn't have been a happy camper. And from some of their looks, they weren't happy campers either. But what they were dedicated men and women for Prince George's County who understood their job and took their job very seriously. And what we see here today and what you're about to hear is their effort on behalf, not on my behalf, not on the chief's behalf, not on the command staff's behalf, but on the citizens of Prince George's County's behalf. That is why they wear the uniform. That is why they're dedicated to the work they do. And that is why I am so proud to have a small part to play in their effort. So we are pleased with what they have done, and I look forward to hearing about this January. I also look forward to the fact that we've got, and we said this at the very beginning of this administration, that we were serious not only about protecting and serving, but making sure that those people who wear the uniform also know that we're serious about enforcing the laws so nobody disgraces that uniform. And that is why I'm glad that we're making the official announcement of our Inspector General, Mr. Acosta, and we're very proud to have him. If we can give him a round of applause again. It sends a clear signal to the wider world that Prince George's County is moving forward, that there is a new day here, not only in the police department, but in this government. And so I'm pleased to have like I said, a small role in it, and I look forward to the rest of the news conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Mr. Baker referenced a young hotshot. We like to call him Major Joe McCann. He is the commander of the Special Enforcement Division. He's also the commander who oversaw the January Crime Initiative. He's going to detail the great police work that took place in the busiest police districts as it relates to this initiative. Major McCann.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. First, I want to thank Chief McGaugh for giving me the opportunity to work this assignment. I appreciate the faith that you have in me, Chief, and it was an honor to work with the men and women on a daily basis. And I think that's important. Before you know what, let's go over the numbers real quick. We're looking at 551 on-view arrests. 133 of those were felonies. 374 misdemeanors, 20 felony juvenile arrests, 24 misdemeanor juvenile arrests. Over 3,000 people were contacted. These are not everyday Mr. and Mrs. Smith taxpayer. These are the guys hanging out on the street corners that we need to have face-to-face contact with. Over 3,000 of those folks were contacted, which led to a lot of arrests as well. We had a lot of drugs that were seized, 54 firearms. As you can see on the table over here, semi-automatic handguns, rifles with scopes. We seized those in just a matter of a month. And these are folks that make up about 9% of the police department. And they were working 10-hour shifts. And what I want to talk about when it comes to that, well, you can see also the drugs that were seized. You got about, well, what is that, about 18 pounds of marijuana. That's more than enough for a Cheech and Chong movie, if you think about it. So, you know, these guys are really out there. They're hustling and making a difference. Homicides went down by 60% when you compare January of this year to January of last year. Those are human lives. Those are people that are living because of the men and women that went out there and risked their own lives to make this community safer. So I was honored to work with them. They're the ones that made this happen. Those lieutenants that were out there on the street running around with the guys and girls that were fighting crime, very proud of the job they did. And I think that the background to all this that we have to keep in mind is that these were moms and dads. They chose to work 7 days a week. These folks didn't take a day off. That's the story behind all this. They worked 10-hour days, 7 days a week for over 30 days. And they did it at a moment's notice. So that's the kind of dedication you have from your police department, and these are the results that you get from that dedication. You see a changing in the crime culture. And, you know, to those bad guys out there that may be watching this type of effort doesn't just go away now. We've taken from this and we're honing it down to a science. So if you're going to carry a gun in Prince George's County, we're going to catch you and we're going to lock you up, as we did with at least 54 of these folks that you can see over there. So again, I appreciate the commitment from our county executive, thank you, sir, and from the government at large, and especially the men and women that wear the uniform. They're the ones that wear the gray shirts. There's maybe a couple of them in here. They're the ones that are out there making a difference. They're not here right now because they're out there right now. So I want to thank them especially. Thank you.
Thank you, Major. And for the second portion of this event, I'd like to bring Chief McGaw back to the microphone for our formal introduction.
Well, before I bring Mr. Acosta up, I'd also like to thank one group of people in this room, the command staff that is here. Joe ran this initiative really 7 days a week for 30 days. But these are the men and women that run this department every day, every hour of this day. So I'd like to personally thank them for their efforts. One of the first conversations I had with Mr. Baker, beginning of last year, was I need three civilian professionals on the police department. One was a media relations person, and Julie Parker filled that position very well. The other one was an IT position we're in the process of filling to get us where we need to be technology-wise into the future. And the third piece, and probably the most important piece, is the Inspector General position. And when we had this conversation, we're in the middle of budgets, but I told him this is what we need to move us to the next phase, to the next step of this department's growth. And Mr. Baker supported all three of those positions wholeheartedly, and I just want to thank him again for that. It gives me great pleasure today to announce Mr. Carlos Acosta as the department's new Inspector General. He comes to us with a combination of experience, expertise, and an unblemished reputation. Mr. Acosta most recently worked for the Department of Justice, and he can explain what he did in Mexico. He explained it to me. I didn't understand it. Putting together the whole judicial system for Mexico, revamping their judicial system. But he can explain that a little bit better. But he has a tremendous amount of experience and expertise. He comes from, he was former deputy to the state's attorney in Prince George's County. He directly was responsible for the supervision of homicide, violent crime, felony trial, and economic crime division. The hiring of Mr. Acosta takes our department to the next level, just like I said. This will be a key part of achieving and maintaining our integrity with the community that we serve. Mr. Acosta will have unlimited access to all operations of the agency, and we will be making recommendations to incorporate best practices. Mr. Acosta will work directly with me. Again, he is the most qualified person, in my opinion, that could step in and help us go to the next level. And I'd like him just to come up and say a few words. I'd like to introduce again Mr. Carlos Acosta.
Thank you, Chief. Folks, I'm very humbled to be here today, part of a very good police department. I have been a prosecutor in a lot of different places. If you looked at my resume, you might say I can't keep a job. I have been to Montgomery County, I've been Prince George's County, I've been to the feds 3 times. I keep coming back to Prince George's County. I've been fortunate in that when I've come back, I've gotten new challenges, I've got new responsibilities, and I hope I've acquitted myself well. And I hope to do the same here. The Inspector General is a very important position for this police department and for this administration. There's a lot on my shoulders. What we hope to have happen are a number of things. Number one, we want to show folks that this position is an independent authority. When I was first talking to the police department about this, I really engaged them from the standpoint of I was giving them ideas on how I thought they should structure it, and then it turned into maybe you should apply, and I did. So I got an opportunity to really help build this position in a way where I thought, and it wasn't for me, I thought it was going to be for somebody else, and where it would be a good position that would have credibility. The usual Inspector General deals with waste, fraud, and abuse. On top of that, what I thought that this Inspector General should do, and both the police chief and the county executive agreed, is taking a look at both the programmatic and the systemic issues that this department faces, and having the ability to say to the chief, Chief, I think this needs to be changed. Chief, I think we need to look at something else. I believe that I have that autonomy and that authority. And I think as a result, both quickly, in the midterm and in the long term, Prince George's County Police Department will be a police department that other departments will be looking to as the model. And that's really the aspiration. The aspiration will be that the reputation which this department deserves is going to be recognized. I've been a prosecutor all over the nation, and many times when I dealt with departments in other large cities, I have thought back about how Prince George's County handled something, and they did it very well. And I would say, have you thought about a certain manner or a certain approach? And it was like I was talking about something new, which frankly, as a prosecutor, I was taught by the officers of this department. That has to get out. So, some people may ask, well, what would you do day to day? And we looked at what happened yesterday, and that was my introduction, really, to the community. There will be issues. Life is a human endeavor. And certainly there will be times when, as the Inspector General, I will have to look at, as part of my work with internal affairs, at situations which come up. My concern is, first and foremost, as a lawyer, to ensure that due process and the rules are followed administratively. Once they are done, the chips lie where they lie, and we proceed forward. There will be times when officers are absolutely cleared. I will make sure that that gets announced. There are times when there will be situations where the chief will have to make a decision that will affect that officer's career. That will happen. Things will no longer be swept under the carpet in anybody's mind. I don't think they ever were, but I think what has to happen is people need to know that the process is working, the process will continue to work, and we'll be doing it in an accountable manner and as transparent as possible with fairness to all people involved. At the end of the day, I think there's 2 things I need to look at whenever I deal with a situation. Are Prince George's County Police Department's policies sound? And then if they are sound, are the officers getting trained in a way that they know how to apply those policies? If we have that, we're not going to have a lot of issues. And that's one of my final aspirations. We have to get to the point where people look to this department as the model for standards nationally. And I believe that will happen. So I thank you, Chief, and I thank you, Mr. Baker, for the opportunity to be part of this very, very good team. I'm hoping that we're going to get some really good things done, and most importantly, we're going to get recognized for the good work we're already doing. Thank you. Okay.
Before we open it up to questions, I'm going to bring up the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Public Safety, Barry Stanton.
Good morning, everyone. You know, I've been in this business long enough to know that you don't say much when you got your county executive here, because he's the boss. But, you know, let me just say one thing, that this is a good example of where this government is going under the leadership of Mr. Baker. And with public safety in Prince George's County, we are beginning to make progress. This crime initiative in January is just another example of what we're trying to do. The hiring of Mr. Costa is an example of trying to be transparent in a government that's trying to make change. So at the end of the day, I want the citizens to know, I want the police department to know, we are moving forward. We are moving forward in a positive manner to make sure we have the commitment from the community and the commitment from this police force. I want to again thank all the police employees and the police officers. I want to thank the command staff. Excellent job. And finally, at the end of the day, I work with Chief McGall every day. He calls me all hours of the night. We talk, we deal with a lot of things. But I want to commend the leadership of Chief McGall because he's one of the best police chiefs we've had in Prince George's County in a long time. So I want to thank him for his leadership. And finally, just to close, you cannot do this type of job, this type of work, this type of commitment without the commitment of one, the council, and without the commitment of our county executive, Rashawn Baker, who has public safety. I've got this, public safety #1 in his administration. Thank you very much, Mr. Baker.
Any questions from reporters? Denise?
Question for Mr. Major McCann. You talked about the fact that the initiative will continue in some form. Can you elaborate on exactly what will we see? 100, 150 officers, what you had, how much of that will continue?
Well, taking from what we've done, there's strategy discussions going on, and there is a plan for the future. But how we are sending the forces out, if you will, on a nightly basis, that strategy is done at the district level. But the combining of the resources that we've done before, I think we've got a plan to do it at least a couple more times this year, and that'll be rolled out shortly. So.
And its intensity, you'll do it a couple more times, but on a day-to-day?
Well, again, what we've learned from this is you know, we concentrate on the right areas and the right neighborhoods during the right times. The district commanders have their resources at their discretion again now, and they're continuing with what we were doing at the district level. So the same strategies are still in place.
Can you talk about where those resources came from, how you were able to gather what sounds like a lot of extra man hours and a lot of, sounds like overtime hours through the month of January?
Thank you, Mr. Baker, for that. We appreciate it. Yes, we did spend some of the public's money, but really when you look at it, you really did get a lot for your money. You really did. Again, human lives are saved. The number of robbery arrests, I believe 23 robberies, carjackings that we linked to some gang activity, closed those cases. But the resources, basically what you had was a shifting of resources, mostly inside the Beltway, concentrating on those neighborhoods with higher crime rates. And then those resources would be shifted back after the assignment. However, the district commanders also have their own resources still available to them, and we are still putting that attention in those neighborhoods.
Just to go over that a little bit more, we had 22 squads that were centralized squads that discretionary resources that we pulled into primarily inside the Beltway into District 1, 3, and 4. We didn't hurt the staffing at any of the districts, but we took narcotics, we took SOD, we took the pawn unit, all discretionary resources we had. We focused them for 30 days without stressing the districts or taking resources away from the districts. So.
Let me just add to that. I mean, one of the questions I asked the chief when he presented this to Barry and I was whether, in fact, the district commanders were going to be hurt, and he said no. But we're going to take, you know, some of our discretionary resources and focus on those areas, which is not unlike anything that we've said in this administration. We made it very clear that this administration would focus its resources, whether it's public safety, education, transportation, on those high areas needs throughout the county. I think if you see what the state's attorney is doing, it's the same thing. And that is, if we can make sure that those areas that are our most troubled areas and most in need are brought up, then all of Prince George's County is brought up. But the important thing is that other areas were not hurt in terms of resources.
How much did the operation cost?
Barry, do you know?
We don't have a final figure on that. Most of the officer's time spent was readjusting hours. It wasn't a total overtime cost every night. So we don't have that figure, but as soon as we get it, we'll get it to you. No, I don't even know, Matt. But again, the bulk of 85, 90% of the resources that worked each night were on regular schedule. It wasn't a strict overtime detail. So it was a very small part.
Let me just say, I think Major McCann answered that one correctly, and he said that the resources we spent of the citizens of Prince George's County was well worth it. If you look at what we have here today, if you look at our numbers in this January compared to last January, you look at the message that got out. I mean, that's the important thing. The message that got out, that I was watching the TV coverage from what we were doing, sent a clear signal to those out there who are thinking about doing wrong or who are doing wrong that we're going to get you. And we're not going to rest. That not only are we going to find you and arrest you, we're going to prosecute you, we're going to house you in our jails. You need to stop. And the other thing that we brought to bear was there are other options. You know, this is one side you could take, but here's another. So we're going to have we're going to bring you to social services, to family services, all the wraparound things you need. But we're going to spend the resources to make sure that people in this community are safe. And that's not going to stop. Thank you. Yes.
I just had a couple questions for Major McCann with the nice spread here on the table. Could you talk a little bit more about the gun recovery? And is there any particular crime or anything you know, it's nice to see the guns here, but was there some particular crime that was stopped or where you've got a number of these weapons? And also, if you could talk a little bit about what were some of the areas that were like the hotter spots where you concentrated?
Well, each gun has its own story, obviously, and it's really a cross-section of what we do in policing. You're looking at traffic stops, you're looking at search warrants that were effected, you name it, just suspicious persons that were stopped based on tips from the community. We get a call, there's a guy hanging out on the corner, we investigate, we get a gun off of him. Guns that were recovered used in armed robberies, everything across the board, homicides, you name it. Now, as far as the areas that we concentrated on, again, we focused within, for the most part, inside the Beltway. We did go outside from time to time, depending on any crime spikes we saw or any issues we needed to address. But basically inside the Beltway, inside the Capitol Beltway.
Thank you very much for coming today. Some of us will be available for questions afterwards. We appreciate your time. Thanks.